Hello, Simone. I am excited to be here with you today. Today, we are going to be going over something that I have found really fascinating, which is both RFK saying that, Tylenol and acetaminophen could lead to autism or other birth complications. And then, more interesting, the left's reaction to it for me, where there have been viral trends of women just taking lots of Tylenol
I can't
on
even. I can't.
TikTok. And there was one report of a death from this, and we'll get over whether that report is likely accurate.
I hope it's not.
I think it's plausibly accurate. I think over 50% chance that it's accurate. And
Well, I mean, a lot of people overdose on Tylenol all the time anyway. So
yeah. Well, you don't know when you're trying to get like TikTok points or something like that. I mean, these other women who are doing this, and there have been thousands of videos of women doing this that are getting millions of views, right?
I hope they're just drinking something fake out of Tylenol bottles or taking fake pills. Well, I hope they're taking, sugar pills.
I got a call, a very frantic call at 4 o'clock in the morning from a husband whose wife is now dying of liver failure on a ventilator in an ICU because she was trying to prove that Tylenol doesn't cause autism because of what Trump said on the news. Mind you, that's a Harvard study. Now, whether or not you believe the Harvard study or not is not the issue here. The issue is that she's somewhere between 23 to 25 weeks and she overdosed on Tylenol and she's going to die. She's not going to come off that ventilator. People are just taking massive amounts of Tylenol to prove Trump wrong. I mean, weren't these the same people who put Harvard and Fauci and the pillars of science on a pedestal? And now they refuse to believe.
28 weeks pregnant. You know what I'm going to take? Some Tylenol, acetaminophen. It's going to work like a charm. And my baby won't have autism.
How dumb are they?
Yeah.
That you hate a president enough to risk the health of your unborn child. And where the hell are the men who made him pregnant? Because I'm telling you, I would have an issue. This is not new. The warning not to take acetaminophen during pregnancy is not new. It is well.
And we'll get into this for people who don't know. Tylenol is by let's ignore the JFK, let's ignore the new studies that we're going to go into. It was considered to be the safest pain reliever when you're pregnant, but not safe for pregnancy. It was the safest option when you needed an option.
And to be clear, in multiple pregnancies, we have used Tylenol, and that is because you have to balance risks. So if you have a really high fever and you have, for example, a first trimester baby, you risk giving that baby neural tube defects if they are exposed to a high fever. So for the baby we just had, who's now in the NICU and was otherwise very healthy, he basically sustained an injury while being born, so nothing inherently wrong with him. I had a very high fever moments after the embryo was transferred, and then like 1 week after, when neural tube development began, I was definitely on Tylenol. And everyone was like
aware of is cost benefit trade-off with this stuff, because we're also going to go over in this, even if RFK is right about everything he's saying, what is the actual risk of one of the complications from Tylenol? And it's still fairly low. It's like a 1 to 2% increase in probability. And this is base probability, not, if the original risk was 1% and now the new risk is 2%, you could say, well, it increased by 100% or it increased by 1%.
Doubled your risk, which sounds so scary. Yeah.
But the point I was going to make here is it's as if these people hate our political side more than they love their children. They would just decide to risk and when I say risk their child, Tylenol itself said in multiple tweets that we'll go over, do not take this when you're pregnant. It has not been approved for use in pregnancy, and it may have negative consequences. When people asked if they could. So this is mainstream, the company itself saying, don't do this. Everyone should know that you can't just take infinite Tylenol. But I think these people are just my side says Trump is bad for saying X, therefore I don't need to like, do they not even research? Do they not even Google before they just start taking a ton of Tylenol when they're visibly pregnant?
I mean,
it reminds me of in Scotland, I heard one of the report from my friend of a girl who he knew from like inner city Glasgow, because that's where he grew up, where she was smoking when she was pregnant, and they were like, "Why are you doing that?" And she said she heard it made the baby smaller so that giving birth would hurt less. So there are astonishingly stupid people out there.
Well, and there's the other example of someone on social media was complaining that they ordered a grocery delivery that included Tylenol, and the person who delivered the groceries substituted it for acetaminophen and was like, "Didn't you know that Trump said that Tylenol isn't safe?" And they're the same thing.
Yeah, I know. And Simone has been bemoaning the entire time this controversy has been going how upsetting it must be to be at Tylenol just because Trump cannot pronounce acetaminophen. Yeah. And we know that's why he said Tylenol, because there's this speech apparently where like, you describe it. You described it to me this morning.
Oh my God. You have to, I'll try to find a clip of the press conference. Yeah, where Trump, makes this big announcement about RFK's report on acetaminophen, and he's like, "Oh man, I'm gonna mispronounce this," and he tries to say the word acetaminophen and butchers it multiple times, and Kennedy, RFK, is just standing right behind him the whole time with this pained look on his face, and his voice is super screwed up, so he's saying acetaminophen, and it's like obviously Trump is not hearing it. You can see his lips moving, and he's trying to tell Trump. Obviously, Trump didn't listen to the White Stripes.
And did they talk about acetaminophen?
Yeah, there's this, you have no taste in medicine, acetaminophen. Okay. You see
First, effective immediately, the FDA will be notifying physicians that the use of acetaminophen, is that okay? Which is basically commonly known as Tylenol, during pregnancy can be associated with a very increased risk of autism. So taking Tylenol is not good. All right, I'll say it. It's not good. For this reason, they are strongly recommending that women limit Tylenol use during pregnancy unless medically necessary. That's, for instance, in cases of high fever.
Well, so the great thing here about all of this, and I will note, when people are like, what are your guys' deeper thoughts? Before I get into this, Simone, you believe that there actually aren't particularly, like, you think that RFK messed up the studies that he was citing. I think that maybe you were told this by a progressive journalist without actually looking into the volume of studies that he was citing.
Okay.
So I think he is likely accurate, that there probably is some complication there.
My understanding is that this is one of those issues where there wasn't enough correction used. Like, when you ultimately correct for a bunch of factors that you should be correcting for in a study, which is hard. It's a very nuanced thing.
Right. But you sort of have the impression that this was like one study of like 20,000 people, when it was like 8 studies of like 80,000 to 200,000 people each, done by different teams that all came to around the same result. So I want to be clear here. You had the impression like it was like one study that made a mistake. And I think one study might have made a mistake. I mean, the left has to react reactively to everything like this. I think the wider problem around autism is Simone's diagnosed as autism. Our kids are diagnosed as autism.
It's genetic. Also, it's a bunch of different things.
My mom had a view of autism that is not dissimilar from RFK. She's like, she won't be able to love you or the children. And when one of our kids was diagnosed as autism, she was like, well, that's it for his life. And at RFK, will say all these things like, with people who have autism, their lives are ruined. Meanwhile, Elon has been diagnosed with autism because he was diagnosed with Asperger's, and Asperger's is no longer a separate diagnosis. So he would be technically autistic. And so we need to, I think, realistically as a society, break apart autism into multiple diagnoses again. It is really, really stupid to have it listed as one diagnosis when one person is like Elon or my wife, and then another person can't use the bathroom on their own. Like, why are we calling these the same thing? It's not even like degrees. And the reason why the wokies and the woke departments cannot do this is because then all of the people who are using this to try to claim like disability points and which they need for their social games, right? Like anyone could just self ID as autistic, which they do, you know, the internet, right? And then the people who actually have challenges because of this, they point to them as if they're in the same kind of disabled camp as the actually severely disabled person. And the mere fact, and I actually think it's really sick and psychotic that people do this, because you will see like far lefties online, like literally be like, how dare RFK say he wants to reduce autism rates? This is a genocide against my people. This is my people being erased. And so no research should be done into reducing autism. When I'm like, you understand that like this is a diagnosis that's also being applied to people who can barely function in society, or
who will forever be in diapers and need full-time round-the-clock care, who will never be able to get a job, will never be able to do anything independently, who are huge risks to themselves and others.
Yeah, like how dare you say that those people, that we shouldn't try to reduce whatever's causing that just so you can claim your disability points and that RFK is coming to genocide you.
And I think that there are some conditions that are diagnosed as autism that are downstream of just other things. Like there's this new medication that a lot of people are talking about, which is meant to treat, I think maybe like a thyroid imbalance or something like that, that really does seem to effectively treat it. At least in the research, it's been focused on children, but adults have also reported big changes in like their language processing ability. And that's getting grouped in. And those people want this treatment because it makes them like, they can be more functional as people. And so there's all these things that like sensitivities to stuff, imbalances to things, it's all called autism.
I'm saying this to somebody with autistic wife, autistic kids, right? If you use the fact that you are autistic to try to prevent other people, especially if you are not low functioning autistic, to try to prevent other people for coming up with cures or preventing that, you are an actual psychopath.
Well, and people should have the right to try to avoid or lean into certain traits that they want. You know, you shouldn't force people.
Right. That's not what I'm talking about here. When you see somebody online being like, how dare they attempt to reduce this? How dare they work on cures for this? When you are not actually dealing with the negative consequences that they are trying to address.
Yeah.
You are basically sacrificing those people and those future people for your chance to sort of emotionally masturbate online. And one, our audience needs to call these people out when they do this. Like, people need to stop feeling okay doing this.
Yeah.
People need to stop feeling okay. Like, this is how we got to this place in society, is that people would do stuff like this and we just like roll our eyes. And we need to be like, you are an actual psychopath that you would throw low functioning autistic people under the bus like this.
Yeah.
Just so you can feel good about yourself. But anyway, I wanted to go into the woman who
he's back on screen, by the way.
The baby.
NICU cam.
Baby we just had. Maximally autistic. We did all of the back off screen needed to ensure maximum autism in this one. Tex the autistic. That's his middle name, the autistic. It's actually Demiasin from the Culture series by Ian Bateman. But anyway, the woman who potentially killed herself, where does this report come from?
Yeah. What happened? Well, first, what did she do?
She did a video where she did a bunch of Tylenol to try to show that it's not risky at all while she was pregnant.
No.
I told you, thousands of women are doing these videos. This is a viral trend.
Then it's not just her she's putting at risk. Oh, that's, dude, like, yeah. Everyone knows in pregnancy, like, you can't take anything. You can't take anything. You can't drink chamomile tea. I mean, come on.
These people hate you more than they love their children. That's just the end of it. Okay. Their children, they're just having them to extend this life, I guess, this hypothesis of happiness that they are living that clearly isn't giving them what they want. Oh, by the way, Simone, I just finished this off. Let's try to remember to not throw these away and wash them out, because I think they'd make really good bonkers for the kids.
Okay. I'll let me wash them out with soap, though. You don't want them to like grumble.
Yeah, they've got a sort of club shape to them. I can put them in like
break.
Balloon or something. Yeah,
they're gonna play with trash.
We've been looking for some like good toy swords for our kids, and this would be a great one.
They're good clubs. Yeah.
Gotta look for that in the future. The good bonker stuff.
Try to find some way for them to decorate them or something. Yeah.
But anyway, it was a video posted by Nicole Surtek, who is the executive director of American Frontline Nurses. Now, the reason why a lot of progressives disbelieved it is she was flagged with COVID misinformation. Specifically, she was one of the people who said that these shots might be killing some people, which we basically now know that some of the early shots were causing the type of blood clot in some individuals. Basically, okay, so the story here, our behind the scenes information on this is that when the shots were approved, they were approved for intramuscular injection only, and that required a special type of trained nurse, and so it would have made it harder for them to be deployed at the rate that they needed to be deployed at. And so when they accidentally did go intravenously, which I think happens like 5% of the time or like 3% of the time, it would form a blood clot, which could cause heart issues.
And like when you do an intramuscular shot, what you're supposed to do is pull out the plunger a little bit to see if you pull any blood. If you do, then you need to start
that hard to train people. They just basically
it just takes a lot. And I mean, but it's also like more disturbing for the actual recipient. So I could see from an optics standpoint,
is that she wasn't wrong about this, but she broke a progressive like mainstream thing, and so they're like, oh, now you can't trust anything she says. But anyway, she claimed that she received a frantic 4 a.m. call from an anonymous husband who's 23 to 25 week pregnant, had overdosed on an entire bottle of Tylenol after seeing Trump's announcement in TikTok trends. Surtek said the woman was now on liver failure and a ventilator, and there was little chance of survival for her and her baby. And people have said, well, why can't you get a camera crew on this woman if this is real? And basically the answer is, if you're not retarded, is this woman clearly does not like Trump, right? She doesn't want the fact that she screwed up and likely is going to die and her baby died to be a right-wing talking point. Very obviously, she isn't going to consent to being on camera about this. You could say, why wouldn't the hospital consent to this? You think a hospital is going to throw one of its patients under the bus like that? Like, are you out of your mind? If this is a real thing, you wouldn't be able to easily confirm it. And this lady is not on record having lied before, and she runs a major nurses organization. She's not like a nobody out there, right? So yeah, I think it's very plausible what she's saying, especially when I look at these TikTok trends videos and I'm like, that looks like a potentially lethal amount that you're taking there. Like, somebody has explained to you that Tylenol isn't a no side effects medication, right? Like, I just don't think that they're aware of this. So to get to the thing I was talking about, the Twitter from Tylenol, the @Tylenol brand wrote, we don't actually recommend using any of our products while pregnant. Thank you for taking time to voice your concerns. They deleted that post, by the way. They got freaked out because it's gone viral recently. And another post @Tylenol said, congrats on your upcoming edition, ! So exciting, ! It would be great to touch base real quick since we haven't tested Tylenol to be used during pregnancy. Call us when you can, end quote. Then in another one on addressing pregnancy pains, @Tylenol said, we're sorry to hear that it hasn't helped your pregnancy plans, ! Please be sure to talk to your doctor for alternative pain relief options. So basically, in multiple things, Tylenol was saying, hey, you shouldn't be doing this.
Yeah, and just for pain, I mean, yeah.
You undergo so much pain during pregnancy. When you tough it out, Simone, you are such
It's better. Yeah, I mean, like, I don't know. I think that medications should only be taken to protect the baby when you're pregnant. You get thrown under the bus. I do not care.
Mm-hmm. I heard you can't even drink when you're pregnant anymore. What
I actually feel like people are really loosening up on that. They're like, it's fine. Have a glass of wine.
She drank during pregnancy?
Your mom?
Yeah.
Half a bottle of wine a day.
Yeah, half a bottle of wine a day. So she drank, and everyone's like, wait, you don't have fetal alcohol syndrome. You can tell. Like, Greta Thunberg has fetal alcohol syndrome. It's pretty easy to tell when you're looking at somebody. And people can be like, why aren't you? And I was like, do you know how much alcohol I drink? Like, my family is like immune to the
Not even immune. It's like you need it, like Bender.
Leave me alone.
Look at that 5 o'clock rust. You've been up all night not drinking, haven't you?
Hey, what I don't do is none of your business.
Please, Bender, have some malt liquor. If not for yourself, then for the people who love you. Wait! I want you to look me in the eye and promise you won't get behind the wheel without some kind of alcoholic beverage in your hand.
I promise nothing!
It's a necessary part of your diet. Without it,
people are like, Malcolm, you're really smart. I'm like, imagine how smart I would be if I wasn't born, soaked in and half a
Born
bottle.
pickled.
Yeah, pickled. But let's go into these studies, because I think that you might have a misunderstanding of why he made this decision.
Okay.
Where did you get this understanding that you have, by the way? Was it on Blocked and Reported?
No, I asked Perplexity.
No, okay.
But, I mean, that, it's dealing with source data that has skew. So
Yeah. And I'm asking Grok. So, right, like we're getting it both from ads.
well, there you go.
So Nurses in Health Study 2, 2019, among 29,000 mother-child pairs, prenatal acetaminophen exposure was linked to 20 to 30% higher risk of autism or ADHD in children. The adjusted odds ratio is 1.2 to 1.3. Longer exposure duration correlated with greater risk. Now, I'll note here before we go to the next study, that was a 29,000 mother-child pair thing. And it didn't just show greater risk. It showed the more you took, the greater the risk was.
Yeah, but I thought that what there was a correlation between people who were autistic themselves taking more Tylenol when pregnant.
Okay, maybe, but I just can't believe that wasn't tested for in a single one of these studies. So we're going to go to the next study.
Okay.
Next study, Boston Birth Cohort. In 2,500 urban mother-child pairs, diverse low income, prolonged exposure over 28 days associated with 4x higher ASD risk or autism risk. Now, this one is interesting because this is what I saw when I looked into this before, when you first started giving birth, because of course I wanted to know, like, is Tylenol safe to take while you're pregnant? And what I remember reading, and this is what I've always communicated to you, is that when it was found unsafe, particularly in animal models, you basically needed to be on it for very long periods of time, i.e. 28 days or more. Like, you wouldn't even think of taking Tylenol 28 days in a row while you were pregnant. Whereas this is where you're getting these risk scenarios. And this was what we saw in mice around risks from it, is normal amounts of Tylenol taken for extremely long periods of time. And some people just do this because they have daily pain. And that's where I think we really do need to be looking at the risk from this, because I would not be at all surprised to this 4x higher rate. And I don't think you can get something like a 4x higher rate just from a correlation with autistic people being more likely to take Tylenol.
I think maybe I'm going to check this too, something about siblings, like in pregnancies that had more acetaminophen intake. If you also looked at whether their siblings were autistic, there were. But then, I mean, presumably the mothers just have a habit of taking more acetaminophen. However, it does say that some research indicates that there is a maternal genetic predisposition to neurodevelopment conditions and correlating with increased pregnancy symptoms. Like autistic people, as you know, are more sensitive to a lot of things.
True.
And therefore may medicate.
I don't think that gets you 4x higher risk. That's really high. Okay, let's go to the next one here. Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health Review 2025. Mm-hmm. They did an NIH-funded meta-analysis of 46 studies with over 100,000 participants. Mm-hmm. And they found, quote unquote, consistent associations. 27 studies showed positive links to autism, ADHD, with higher quality ones being more likely to report risks. So ones that were using more controls showed more risks. They recommended minimal use. Johns Hopkins University, and that just came out this year and used over 100,000 people. Johns Hopkins University study, 2019, meta-analysis of 7 studies with around 130,000 participants, reported 20 to 30% increase in both ADHD and autism. And this mattered more in boys and more if it was used later in pregnancy.
Later in pregnancy.
That's
interesting, because normally the impression I get is it's what you're exposing a baby to earlier in pregnancy that has more of an impact.
Then we have and note here, I'm here talking about like Johns Hopkins, Harvard, NIH. This isn't like some crackpot, like conservative, whatever.
Yeah,
this is like
a bunch of yahoos.
It's not like the actual thing that happened here is not that, because a lot of people are like, well, he couldn't possibly have run enough studies to get this data in this amount of time. This is basically something that was well and commonly known throughout the medical field before this. But it was also known that we don't want to scare women about Tylenol too much, because we do.
I'll take autism over a neural tube defect any day.
Yeah, absolutely.
Any day.
Right. So that's the point, right? Is they wanted to not overly freak people out, so there wasn't some big campaign around this. But I've noticed that there's this like weird reactive thing on the left, and I think it sort of came from the autism is from vaccines thing, where any explanation for autism is taken as a sign of a conspiracy theory. Anyone saying this is what might be causing autism rates, they're just like, that's definitionally a conspiracy theory, because we know that what causes autism is one of the things we're not allowed to talk about. In the same way that, like, if we're talking about like falling fertility rates, they're like, oh, that must be a great replacement theory thing. That must be a conspiracy theory, because we just know this is in the category of things we're not allowed to talk about. So a Mount Sinai study came out in 2025. This was a cohort of 1,000 mothers, and it found 25% higher risk. There was the International Consensus Statement in 2021, which had 91 experts from 17 countries review data and urged precautionary limits on acetaminophen during pregnancy due to, quote unquote, emerging neurodevelopmental risks. So in 2021, like a group of experts, and this was published in Nature, right? Nature Reviews Endocrinology, saying, the experts, the 91 experts came together and said, do not take this wantonly during pregnancy. Biological Mechanisms Review, 2022. This one actually had a proposed pathway. Acetaminophen may disrupt fetal brain development via glutathione depletion and prostaglandin inhibition and hormone interference.
Oh, well.
So, yeah. That's a lot of research from a lot of really, and this
there's
is the
also
thing.
a lot of research that points out that endocrine disruptors in, first trimester at the very least, and probably all trimesters, are really not good to be exposed to. And if you're ordering takeout, if you're eating at a restaurant, like your stuff is being cooked in plastic, you're getting that exposure. If you're microwaving stuff in plastic, you're getting exposure. If you're breathing in the air, you are getting that exposure. So, no, but
the point you're making, and I make this point as well, is if you watch this podcast, you're going to be broadly aware of the TIDE studies that she's referencing here, which show that young boys who have mothers have endocrine disruptors in them during the first trimester of pregnancy, which are common in a lot of chemicals today, they develop less into fully males. They show more female play behavior at the age of 7.
Lower anogenital distance at birth.
Yeah. So this is a thing that is known. If RFK went up there and said, there's a chemical that's, making young boys develop more like young girls, everyone would be like, oh, we turning the frogs gay. Oh, this is a conspiracy theory. Oh, can you believe how crazy it is? The next day, there would be 20 things from the left about why these studies don't have proper controls and why these studies don't have proper...
Women eating plastic, microwaving their vegetables in plastic bags. Yeah.
You guys know this. We know this. This was just a category of thing that was in certain communities, was commonly known, i.e. the in Nature from the big panel of international experts, and RFK just basically went up and said it publicly, and the left had to have an existential freak out in the same way that, and I won't say right these days this is more common on the left, but the right used to be like this. Like when Michelle Obama decided she was going to like plant healthy gardens.
She planted like a victory garden at the White House.
And she's like, what can I do? That's not going to fit. Then it became cool on the right to be like performatively unhealthy for a while. And people would walk around with like the giant, like baby size.
Then there is a horrifying 512 ounce version that they call child size. How is this a child-size soda? Well, it's roughly the size of a 2-year-old child if the child were liquefied.
Oh God, yes.
Cups of soda, drinking them just to show, I'm not a cocky damn. I'm destroying my body to show how bad they are, right? The broader thing is, because people often ask, what do we think of Maha? What do we think of RFK? He seems pretty cool. Is what I'd say. I think he's like...
Seems like a righteous dude.
He seems like a righteous dude, yeah.
He jeopardizes my ability to effectively govern this student body.
Oh, well, he's very popular, Ed.
The sportos, the motorheads, geeks, sluts, bloods, wastoids, dweebies, dickheads. They all adore him. They think he's a righteous dude.
He's not right about all the science that he does. Absolutely true. He does make mistakes. He is not like a rationalist. He's much closer to a granola mom, but he doesn't attack the things that I care about. He's not out there, complaining about GMO foods, which I think are like a way that, like, I love that we took the let's prevent the random chemicals in endorphin blocker, and let's drop the GMO and anti-nuclear stuff that was common in the old granola communities. Like, I remember at Stanford, somebody was like, they're trying to give me flyers about that, and I was like, oh, no, sorry, I'm a scientist. And they're like, oh, well, then you must be extra against it. And I was like, nobody who has a deep understanding of biology is against this. It's not that it cannot cause issues, right? Like, you can't get crossbreeding with wild specimens, you can't get change in wild populations,
and then there's the political commercial issues of, like, theoretically an agricultural company that produces them suing a farmer who's growing it because he didn't pay for the seeds.
Right. But if you're actually aware of how much extra crop is produced because of this,
and often without the need for genuinely bad for your health pesticides,
which flow into the water supply, and then it's not just the pesticides that you're eating. These pesticides through the rainwater go into the rivers, and they just completely f up these ecosystems.
Yeah,
like if you care about environmentalism, you are pro GMO.
Clearly,
if you care about like starving Africans, you're pro GMO. It gets all of these very important nutrients into regions where you can't easily otherwise get them through like golden rice and stuff. We're talking about hundreds of millions of lives are almost certainly saved every year by the existence of GMOs. Like it's one of these things where you just need to be sort of like comically incompetent or evil to be against it, like being against nuclear power or something like that. Like it's like a strict benefit thing when it's being well maintained. I mean, you can say, well, what if it's not being, then focus on maintaining it, man. Right? Like, this isn't the decommission them when they get too old, right? Build new ones. That's what we should be doing right now, but we don't have any major projects doing that. And most of our nuclear plants are over 50 years old. I don't know if you knew that. Not great when I think of a 50-year-old person's structural state, but the what I was going to say was the wider point here.
I don't know. When you think about it, though, also like appliances built 50 years ago last a lot longer than appliances built today. So,
but the other thing I was going to say about RFK is, so people are like, well, so he gets some science wrong sometimes, being over granola, over crunchy. Like, is that a problem for you? And I'm like, as long as he doesn't touch my GMOs, as long as he doesn't touch my nuclear, and the ways that he is making these decisions, they're like, well, more kids could die because communities are going unvaccinated. I think that we have treated questioning vaccines as a sacred cow for far too long. And I think we as a society need to go back, look at various vaccines, and be open to saying that they may not be safe in some circumstances.
And what Cremieux has argued on X, which I think is both very brutal, but also fair in like in a world in which we respect people's cultural autonomy, is the highest rates of vaccination happened after big death scares, after people realized this is what happens if you don't vaccinate, if we don't have herd immunity. And then people went out in droves. Like, forcing people to get vaccinations is not the way. People need to do it because they see the value. They themselves have been convinced, and they do it.
We pointed this out on another episode. There's been studies done post-COVID on like masks, for example, and we now know that masks in the regions that were heavily masked, like in the United States, the states that had less mask restrictions actually had fewer overall deaths, even though it did increase casualties in the short term. So the idea of slowly building herd immunity and that having better effects in a lot of these external things is another thing that we just haven't been studying very well. This also was true in Europe. Not smaller, it was statistically no different effects there. But the point being, we as a society need to be open to having conversations about this. And I'm okay with RFK mostly because I like the voter base he brings into the right. Like, he brings in the granola moms and the soccer moms, and we only have to care and deal with like a few. He's not like banning you from getting Tylenol while pregnant or something, right? maybe incorrect things being spoken about. Somebody was Boomer's idea of what autism is. Like, if you're autistic, you'll live your entire life in diapers and be a drain on the economy. Meanwhile, like up on stage is Elon Musk, like looking nervously. But no, but I think
he
that
DC at the right time, probably. Good call.
What?
He left DC at the right time. He didn't go back since.
Yeah. Well, I love that. What was it? Chris Chan is very upset about Asperger's people, and now that Asperger's isn't around, being considered autistic because he doesn't, and I think rightly, he sees them as using people like him who are undergoing real and genuine challenges, like the inability to not grape their mom. Come on, I had to go on that.
Yes, you did.
I found out today because we've been going through and pushing to private on rfab.ai, which is like the AI chat engine that we built. You guys try to, it's like getting so much better every day. I'm really proud of it. But push, scenarios that are overly potentially like would squig people out in the not safe for work simulator section. For clarification here, the only reason we can see these is because they were set to public intentionally when they were created. You can just choose to set things to private by default. And unlike any of the other chat engines, our fab.ai has local saving enabled, and not just local saving, but your save games themselves, not the locally saved scenarios, but your save games themselves have military grade encryption on them. And every time you reload, it will ask you for a word that is used to de-encrypt them. And that word, the reason it's asked every time is because it's not saved on our database. So even if somebody had our database and your computer without knowing that string of text or word, they couldn't unencrypt your files. Oh, and as to why we're pushing some to private, we have some investors looking at us right now, specifically made it to the next round of the Andreessen Horowitz application. And by pushing them to private, the person who created them can still play them, but we don't have to worry about an investor getting squigged out and deciding that they don't want to. Now I know a bunch of people are going to rush and try to create specifically embarrassing stuff on there, but whatever. We have like an automatic generator, so you don't need to like use scenarios that other people made to private. And there were a lot on incest, and somebody was like, is this like a power user who's making them all public? Or like we on the dev end don't actually like have the ability to see that because I tried to make everything super anonymized.
So wait, someone's just adding a bunch of incest content?
Yeah.
Wincest. I love it. Okay, go. Whoever you are, go off.
Whatever, yeah. We had the episode where we're like, yeah, cousin marriages are the best.
Third to fourth, but yeah.
Third to fourth cousin, right, yes. And that was the episode where we had the big reveal to me that you and I are not related. I had no idea.
I know. We were so sure. You were so sure that we were going to come up as cousins.
Well, I felt like third or fourth cousins.
Yeah.
But we look very similar. People joke all the time. We have similar personalities.
It makes sense though. Like when you look at what we knew about our lineages and like where our ancestors immigrated and stuff, it would be fairly surprising.
Yeah,
they came over in very different waves from very different groups.
Yeah. So anyway, any final thoughts from you on this?
I want to look more at the research now. Yeah, I was under the impression that it was totally misinterpreted. So now I'm like, well, I guess I need to.
Well, AI, sometimes the question that I had framed it with is why did he believe this? Like, where did he get this information?
Oh, so yeah, I mean, that could be a little confirmation biasy. Like, I mean,
well, I also asked then why people don't believe it. And the answers it gave for why they didn't believe it were so bad. Confounding factors in studies, women take Tylenol for things like infections, migraines, hyper, blah, 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 blah. I was like, that wouldn't increase the risk by that much. That would have a correlation to the risk, but not 4x or something. Inconsistent or weak evidence. Of the 46 review studies, 20% show no or inverse effects, but only 20% show no or inverse effects. That's like normal science when you know something is right. When only 20% of the studies show no. Lack of causality or proof. This is just nonsense here. The experts like those at Yale or Penn note genetics explain 80 to 90% of the autism variants. Yeah, but that doesn't, then what about the other 10 or 20%? Like we still need to talk about that. And then they're like, and RFK is a conspiracy theorist. And then there's been statements from WHO, FIGO, and European agencies which say evidence does not support causality, which they released after the RSK thing. And I'm like, yeah, but like your top scientists were saying that it did until RFK went out there and went on the record, right? Like this is the thing. Like everybody was like chill about this until a Republican said it. Then they all freak out and start putting their heads in the sand. is basically where we are as a society. And if you're watching this and you're wondering, like, where do I come down on this? I think it probably does increase the risk, especially if taken for long periods like 28 days. However, I also think that pain management is critical in a pregnancy.
I don't think so. I think fever management is critical in a pregnancy.
Fever and pain management. I think if the mom has too much cortisol for too long a period, it can likely cause neurodevelopmental issues in the child. So there's actually some really interesting studies on this. There was one study that looked at women who gave birth during a period of famine, and their children were like significantly more likely to become obese later, because basically their bodies were...
That has to do more with caloric restriction.
Right. The point I'm making here is their bodies transfer information about the environment that baby is going to be born into to the fetus, right? If you are very stressed, or you believe life is very hard, and there have been studies about this during like economic depressions and like the effects it has on babies. This is not good for babies. It can cause like anxiety. It can cause depression in adulthood. It can cause a sort of hoarding behavior. And this is all like natural and evolutionarily adaptive, right? So it's not even something that I would like question when I see this in a study. I'm like, oh yeah, like that makes sense, right? You know? And so I think that it's about using Tylenol where it's effective. Using Tylenol like to some extent, while understanding that you are trading one risk for another risk.
Yeah, like, do you want higher risk of neural tube defects, or do you want higher risk of autism? Yeah, you're choosing a lesser evil, and that is the calculation to make. Not, I'm just not going to do this and be completely blind of the opportunity cost.
Yes, I think that's really important.
Yeah, it's a much more important way of looking at it, or functional way of looking at it.
And I think it's also, the other thing I take away at the end of this is the other side literally hates us more than they love their own children. They are willing to callously and casually put their children's lives at risk because they have dehumanized the right so much that if somebody on the right says something that was well known in the scientific community and largely accepted before this, they just have to reactively be like, well, then it must be wrong. I almost feel like, I mean, it reminds me of the vasectomy van that was outside the DNC, you know, by Planned Parenthood. And I was like, if the right had sent a van, like, I want to do that. I want to get like the vasectomy van sponsored by pronatalist.org, right? We want Americans to have more children. No, that doesn't mean you. Free vasectomies. Then they'd freak out and be saying we need to ban vasectomies. You know, this is just what you do, right?
I suppose, yeah. Reverse psychology in the most simplistic way possible, and yet they fall for it.
I would love, like, if I had like a big foundation, like one of these Muri or like,
or if you were funded like Turning Points USA,
yeah,
you would ditch the paid for debate me bro sessions and just put out vasectomy trucks.
I would literally send a vasectomy truck to the DNC, and I'd have it very branded, like American flag.
Why do it when they're doing it and paying for it? Let them pay for it.
Because of the one, I think it would do a good job of highlighting for people who are open to hearing our message, like the actual cost of not having kids, and that we are not against dinks. You can be dink, that's great. And then you can put signs on it like, you know, you talk to news teams, and it goes, you know, back in the day, we had to round these types of people up. These days, they just march right in our van. You know, I think it would highlight for people the value of being able to reproduce, and that when somebody is excited about taking that away from you, they are not a friend to people like you. Okay. Like, that is why Planned Parenthood opened in the first place, was to sterilize Black communities. Like, that was their stated objective. Okay.
It's still so hard to believe. And yet there you go.
89% of them are in majority minority communities. That's still, I think I think it was like some crazy statistic that the US Black population would be 40% higher if Planned Parenthood never existed. And I don't understand. I mean, for right-leaning people, I think that this is a much harder pill. If you're like your classic like 90s rightist, instead of like the new right that doesn't have any racists in it at all, and you're like actually a racist, it's like, abortion or racism? Which one am I for? You know, we saw one guy who wanted to fund Planned Parenthood for racist motivations. and he wanted to like start a big campaign around it. And I was like, I mean, you can try. But that'd be another fun thing to do if you want to end Planned Parenthood. Very, very easy. Be like, start a campaign to fund Planned Parenthood for explicitly racist reasons. And I think really quickly that would do the news rounds. People would freak out. Planned Parenthood would not take your money. And then people would be like, oh yeah, abortion when you're targeting specific demographics is really a horrifying thing. Not that abortion isn't more generally a horrifying thing, but you know. Anyway, love you to death, Simone. So glad that we were able to welcome our kid into the world.
Same.
And anybody who wants to, has a bunch of money and wants to fund a vasectomy ban outside the DNC this next election cycle, you let us know. And we're going to be like, we're here to have a conversation. You don't want to have kids. We don't want you to have kids.
Oh, God. Love you, Malcolm.
Put a scorecard outside the van.
Okay. God. Hitting end recording.
Love you.
And set up. I learned something really interesting about, I guess, ultimate fighting in boxing. When ultimate fighting was introduced, it was seen as very savage and, I don't know, inhuman because they removed boxing gloves. This was bare knuckles fighting. And that was seen as, I don't know, more violent, I guess. But it actually isn't more violent. And do you know why boxing gloves were actually introduced in the first place?
I do not.
They have a higher knockout rate. They enable you to hit harder because it doesn't hurt your hand as much. Like, you know, the classic film trope where someone punches someone else and they're like, because it hurts. And yeah, when you
high rates of causing a concussion by that is crazy that's
especially when boxing gloves apparently get wet. They're like, you're just fighting with giant rocks on your hands.
Question.
And so the reason why there was an economic reason to do this is with sports betting, knockout rates are really favorable. You want more knockouts because more people then have something to really like a clear thing to bet on. It's too easy to tap out if you're just grappling or something like that. So there was a commercial reason for this, one, for boxing gloves to be introduced and also for more violence. But then, of course, there was also a commercial reason for the Ultimate Fighting Guy to be like, oh yeah, bare knuckles, it's definitely more violent.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
All right. I will get started with this. By the way, what did you think of the comments today?
People enjoyed it. I mean, a lot of the biggest criticism was Asmongold is not to the right. And yeah, he is a centrist, but these days, if you don't toe the most extreme points of the left, then you are categorized as on the right.
I mean, he's as much to the right is you know, JFK or whatever, who we're going to be talking about today. RFK or, you know, no, come on. RFK is like a lefty by previous definitions, right? You know?
Yeah, a very, crunchy lefty. Yeah, totally.
Even if controversies are left-leaning. Like, so the right, I mean, if you're using that traditional definition of the right, I think Asmongold is very sort of like the modern id of the right in terms of,
and I think a lot of people just haven't recognized that the right is no longer about just pure conservatism, social conservatism, and religious conservatism. It is about a heterodox alliance of people who want cultural autonomy.
Yeah, which is very, very different than we're going to force where the cultural conservative types, they've actually moved to the left because they want to do things like ban porn, which requires VPN bans, which means you're basically giving the government to control what anyone says or thinks. And in that case, you end up with like extreme leftist positions, like we need to give the government and bureaucrats control of what I'm allowed to see and think.
Yeah.
And so I think that, it's just different world that we're living in now. We change through technology and social situations. I'll get started here. Oh yeah, we should probably also let people know. So we had a kid. The kid is in the NICU still. There was, I forget the word, holes in his lungs due to aspirating.
Pneumothorax in each lung, which is it's another way of saying collapsed lung.
And he's probably going to be okay. You know, obviously we're praying and we're hoping that things work out. If you wanted to see like a full video of like the birth and the hospital process and everything like that, we put that on one of our Patreon episodes. It's not because we wanted to monetize that.
Paid Substack episode.
Or paid Substack. It's not that like we were trying to hide that from our general audience. I just don't think that the type of people who come for our usual talks are going to find that interesting, and so it would have hurt us in the algo. So that's why we put it with paid content, and that's what often happens with the paid content.
Yeah, I would show y'all Tex on our NICU Panda Cam, but he's being fed right now, so I have to. But I have him on a constant screen, and that's one thing that they don't tell you about NICUs, that a lot of NICUs have a constant camera you can have on your baby, so even when you can't be with them, you can still watch them.
Oh, and for those who don't know, because you did mention that some people were like, oh, if I could pay for you guys, I would. Well, we do have episodes 7 days a week. It's just the weekend episodes you only get if you're paid. I will note the weekend episodes are shorter and oftentimes on subjects that I think that, like, honestly, like when we're doing our regular episodes, it's a lot of stuff that I think will do well in the algorithm, like women bad, Democrats silly. When it's weekend episodes,
it's listener requests that we agree are really interesting, but that we think we'd be punished for on YouTube, basically. Yeah.
So it's more like what we think is interesting and what I think our higher economic user base is going to think is interesting.
So I like it. I love the weekend episodes, but anyway, I like all episodes. Anyone who gives us the honor of their time these days that's the most precious thing these days. It's a huge honor, but the monetary support is really appreciated. So thank you.
Bridge is working. Are you gonna break his legs, Sosie? Oh my God! You just punched the.
Yes, I did. I want it off. Off. Turn off.
What about you, Toasty?